"Joshua, you can't keep doing this," I said. My son didn't look back at me, just glared at the wall. The head teacher, wearing the same concerned face as me, sighed. He was always a bad kid. In kindergarten, he'd play tricks on the girls with bugs he'd find in the field. In elementary school, when there was a trading card trend, he'd steal other kids' cards. I knew this because he'd always have more every time I'd see him, despite me not buying him new ones for not doing his chores. In high school is where things became violent. One time, I remember some kid was just clicking his pen. When Josh asked him to stop, he just looked back, shrugged and carried on. One warning was all he got before Josh pounced on him and started wailing on him. Another time he was in maths and he stated that he got the answer right. He said out loud what he calculated it was, and another student promptly told him he was wrong. His feeling of achievement was gone, and in place was blinded fury. Afterwards, I saw the sheet and, indeed, he had added before multiplying and was wrong. I didn't tell anyone about that. I was good at covering for him, but it was because, deep down, I knew he was a good kid. I think he knew how much I cared for him because I'd always have his side no matter what. It doesn't matter the severity of the situation. I'd always be able to talk him out of it with nothing more than a slapped wrist and a few days of suspension. Ultimately, I think he knew how gullible I was about him, and he took advantage of that. I'm surprised he wasn't kicked out before this meeting. I had a feeling this would be the last time he'd see this school. I tried to stress this to him, but Josh didn't care. "You're a psychologist, isn't there anything you can do?" the head teacher said. "You think I haven't tried?" I said, feeling mocked by my inadequacies. I sat there and pondered. "I've got one more idea," I said, trying to buy more time. I knew if I didn't think of anything soon, Josh would be kicked out of school. "Well, you've got a week. If there's no visible changes by then, I'll be forced to expel Josh." This is something he's probably wanted to say for a long time. I'm pretty sure he would have expelled him sooner if it hadn't been for my insistent requests for them to reconsider. In the car ride on the way back, I had time to think. Something bizarre came to me, but I had nothing to lose to try it. "Son," I said, turning to face him. He didn't react, just stared out of the window. "You're angry all the time. I think you have a swollen amygdala." I saw him squint. He didn't understand what I said. "Your amygdala is what controls your emotions. Anger is an emotion. I think it'd be easier for you if I removed it myself." Still no response. He was being stubborn, seeing my words as one of my many empty threats. When we got in, I told him to lie down on the table. He just sneered at me. But when he saw me pull out a needle and some anesthetic, however, he looked concerned. I was serious. "What the hell?" he exclaimed. First words I got out of him all night, and it took the threat of brain surgery to do so. "Lie down," I said. I was going to put into practice all the authority I've developed through my life. For this to work, he'd have to be willing. "Son, you're a mess. If you live life this way, you're going to hurt everyone around you. You've already hurt me, and I can't look after you forever. And once I'm gone, you'll be alone." Being a psychologist has its benefits after all. That last statement shook him to his core. I approached him, and with his sterile needle, made his world turn black. When he awoke, he stared at me, eyes squinting in a daze. "Good morning, son," The operation was a success. I pulled up a mirror and lined it up so he could see himself. His hair was missing, and there was a scar along the whole left side of his head. He went to touch it, but I promptly stopped him. "Don't touch it, it's still healing," I said in a rush. And with that, he did something I hadn't seen him do in a long time. He listened. "Okay, lie down and rest. You'll be going back to school in a few days." And with that, he lay down, just as I asked. After this, he became a model student. At first, the other kids were hesitant. They found it odd for his character to have just been changed seemingly overnight, but as soon as they warmed to the idea, he actually made some friends. I've not seen them since his school days, but I'm sure he still has contact with them. His hair grew back in no time, his scar faded. He was, by society standards, normal. When he left high school, he got a part-time job at the butcher's. He told me it's one of the few industries that, no matter how much automation is introduced, will always need a skilled pair of hands for the finer jobs. He'd come home smiling, covered in mess, but I was happy to see him doing something he loved so much. Sometimes he'd bring back some off-cut meat from the shop and we'd dine on steak and talk about life. He was a reformed man. He also took up new hobbies. He'd travel around the country and bring back nice things. He knew I especially loved local wines and cheeses, so he'd often go to new places, bring me back some of the local produce. He also applied for college to study business, finance and law, and was accepted with his final high school grades, which he achieved due to his newfound perseverance. He even tried to pay his own way in, although no matter how ambitious he was with his job, it didn't pay enough. But I was now willing to throw money at him to achieve his dreams. As a man who was ashamed, hurt and reprimanded for being his father, I was now the polar opposite. I was proud. I never told anyone about the surgery too. I simply told the school that he hit his head and that was why he was wearing a hat in class, although I'm sure he must have lifted it up to show people the scar for popularity. It's been a while since then. Josh worked his way through the corporate ladder and landed himself a cushy job. He barely had any competition really. They seemingly handed him the job. Looking back, my idea was a little extreme, but it worked, and for that, I was pleased. And it wasn't short-lived either. I managed to live my life as a happy father for many years, seeing Josh grow up and live his dreams. Yet, here we are. "Why did you do it?" yelled the interrogator. My son didn't look back at me, just glared at the wall. The officer's face was red with anger. Anger at his silence. Anger at his non-cooperation. It looks like his tricks had evolved. Evolved from the days of throwing bugs on girls. Evolved from stealing trading cards. Evolved from hitting other kids. It turns out working at the butcher's was just an alibi for why he'd sometimes have blood on him when he got home. Missing persons rate rose in my area. Too small to be on the news. But then again, Josh liked to travel a lot. Josh really is a smart kid. And there was a reason I never saw his school friends that he made after he left high school. They were his tipping point of going to the extreme. They never found their bodies. It also seems his rise in corporate with no competition was tipped in his favour when the competition would go missing. Bodies found neatly sliced up and left in black bags outside someone else's apartment. I was blind to everything. And now, here we are. I'm representing my son, talking to people in suits, to aggressive officers and grieving families. He thinks I can talk him out of all of this, but I can't. Deep down, I think he knew I didn't do any surgery on him, and knew that I was gullible as ever.